Since you were oversensitive when you sleep, I knew you. I blew a kiss to you, wanted a song, just to say you got the world and it's yours.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 118 of Valley Town. I'm ChanManV, and he's Noxious. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man. Just recovering from yesterday's beating on Firebat in the streamer showdown.
Oh, man. Beating a dead horse. Wow. Yeah, that was definitely a fun game. Definitely a fun episode, but wasn't nearly as competitive as the last couple episodes were.
No, definitely not. They all had like in the past. It seems like the scores were closer, but now I think Toast is dominating, like for sure. Now we have like confirmation that Toast is the all-time champion.
All-time champion, yeah. Like we said before, we're gonna have him sit for maybe a week or two, get like a qualifier round, a couple of them, so we can have them kind of level up and then fight the boss that is Toast. But for those of you wondering what we're talking about Streamer Showdown. That was yesterday, our game show that we do maybe twice a month, something like that. It's been once a month lately, but we just did one yesterday with Trump, Firebat, and Disguise Toast. But this is Valley Town. So for those of you who don't know Valley Town or maybe what we do on the show, this is a weekly podcast where we talk about Hearthstone and everything that's going on with Hearthstone, the meta, any cool decks, any events, any news going on. We just dive into it. And we take questions from you guys too. So at the end, we'll do a Q&A, of course. And if you do have a question, go ahead and email those to valuetown@chanmanv.tv, and we'll try to read them out. Usually we receive emails before the show, so if you do it right now, there's not a very good chance that we're gonna be reading it out by the end, because we already have a couple ready for the show. But yeah, the Valley Town's also, just to kind of get things out of the way, Valley Town is of course supported by the Patreon that we have, patreon.com/ValleyTown. We've got lots of supporters on there, and they've been the sole supporter of Valley Town for a long time. But I want to announce that we have a sponsor for this week, which is Ting. And Ting is a U.S. cell phone provider that provides nationwide LTE access for both T-Mobile and Sprint network. And Ting does rates. So if you're one of those type of people that overpay because you don't use all your data or you don't use all your text messages and things, Ting is all about paying for what you use. So most of the people that are having these problems, if you use Ting, you're going to cut your phone bill by at least half. And the average Ting phone bill is $23, and they're offering right now a $25 off promo that you can use now by going to valuetown.ting.com and checking out the details there. There's a description down below, or there's like an image that you can click on down below too, if you want to check that out. But big thanks to them for sponsoring this episode, as well as obviously our patrons. But it's exciting. I think this is our first sponsor that we've had for Valley Town, so kudos for Ting for that. Outside of Tempo Storm obviously sponsored us for a while too.
Yeah, but the show's getting it's getting big, it's getting attention. It's nice to see that after all these episodes,
people are interested. Oh my god, it's amazing.
It's happening.
All right, well, anyways, let's jump on in. So another week of playing Journey to Un'Goro, or just playing all the crazy decks that are going on with the new expansion. So I figured we just kind of talk about anything that's been going on story-wise, anything cool happened this week while playing it. What kind of decks have you been playing, man?
Honestly, just like I've been saying, Un'Goro is the expansion to me that has revitalized Hearthstone in every possible aspect. Every class has deck that I'm interested in playing, even Warrior. I know, it's one of those things where I keep harping on, tell Warrior sucks. There are ways to build Warrior in a way that they're compelling, and I've actually come upon a build that I made that I thought was kind of cool. It's off the beaten path for Warrior. So this week I explored a bit more of those classes that I tend not to, and I built like a Tempo Warrior with the Elemental package bundled in. So it's
Tempo
like old
Warrior.
school Tempo War.
Okay, all right.
With double slam, double execute. We're ravaging ghoul. We're running fireflies and a battle rage, so that if they get damaged by AoE later in the game, we can draw a bunch.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
The discovery of elementals
like
is
it.
actually not bad. Getting Blaze Callers is good. Getting Tar Lords can be game winning in some stages. And I play a single copy of
Tarlord?
Sudden Genesis. Sudden Genesis.
What is that card? I don't even know that card. What is it?
It's the 5-mana spell that gives you a copy of each damage minion you've got and summons it onto the board.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So if you play sizable mid-game minions, I end up just getting copies of those. And the reason I wanted to make that deck was I realized very quickly, Stonehill Defender is one of the best cards in Ungoro.
Easy, yeah. I think everybody's starting to come to that conclusion.
Right. And I realized very quickly, well, if I run that card, I can get myself some additional taunts, and additional taunts translate into more value, into more minions. Play Servant of Kalamos, you discover more stuff, Paladin style, but in Warrior. And suddenly, you end up with a deck that is very different, and I end up mulliganing my quest away in Taunt Warrior half the time. I just throw it away because it's not a matchup I can play slowly. So if I'm going to mulligan my quest away, why not just play for tempo and ignore the whole quest objective and just go for pure value? So that's what sprung up. And I'm not sure. Have you had any experience with, the whole elemental package with Servant of Kalamos and Stonehill Defender in the same deck?
I have to say no. I haven't tried Stonehill Defender in an elemental deck at all. But to be honest, I haven't played that many elemental decks just because been trying to avoid it. I mean, I'm not really avoiding it. There's just been so many other things to try out that I haven't quite gotten to that just that archetype quite yet. But sounds interesting though. I mean, especially in Warrior, because obviously there are very popular Warrior archetypes that everybody's playing. So it's always good to think outside the box with just very popular classes that people are playing right now. So that tends to be something both me and you do. When Midrange Shaman was super popular, we were playing the control shamans, right? And that sort of thing.
It's funny you speak of control shaman, because that was the other deck I was going to talk about. Volcano is a real card, right? We all know Volcano.
Yeah, people are playing Acolyte.
Wipe the board.
People are playing Acolyte against it, right? So it's kind of funny.
But the crazy part is the card that I thought was bad that turned out to be amazing is Spirit Echo. 3 mana.
Oh, yeah.
You give your minions Death Rattle, return them to your hand. Now, if you play that in a deck that runs White Eyes, in a deck that runs Genie Water Speaker, in a deck that runs Servant of Kalamos, it means you're getting to discover Kalamos or another big elemental, and then it comes back to your hand for another discovery. And I've just been absolutely mind blown at how powerful Spirit Echo is in N'Zoth Elemental Control Shaman. It's completely insane.
Yeah, it's not quite as good as like Reincarnate, but it has that kind of feel where you can like double up on your guys, or Faceless,
On Battlecries, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, on Discover it's insane. You get like 5 Kalamos a game. It's nuts.
It is pretty
insane.
No, that sounds awesome. That's definitely something I was trying to get to also. But this week I've been, we're going to be spotlighting Paladin, right? So I've been playing some Paladin, playing some of the Control Priests too, just because I just saw that deck floating around and I didn't quite understand how people were winning with it, because when you look at it, comparing it to like say the Silence Priest, the winning condition is very clear, right? You get something on the board, you double the health and inner fire, or just over time, right? Over a few turns, you end up just beating them down. With the Control Priest, it's actually different. It's very subtle. Like the damage is just gradual. It does super well against aggro, so that's one of the reasons why it's doing so well right now. But it's not clear as to how you win. And then you realize real quickly that, Lyra gives you like amazing value. Like,
wait, you mean you don't have to play Inner Fire in your deck and you still make her 25/25? Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so it's man, that card is definitely living up to the potential. But no, that card's definitely fun too. And to your point, your very first point about Ungoro, man, it's been amazing so far. Just in terms of how many classes are viable, how many decks are floating around, and even though we see a lack of control decks, I have to say, overall though, the balance out there with just I think class usage and things looks probably the best it's looked in a year or two. So
Yeah, by
mission
far.
accomplished, right? By
Like
Blizzard.
the honeymoon is still on.
Of
The point
course,
is,
but
we're like pretty deep into the expansion based on the amount of time it's been out. It's like
Mhm.
about 2 weeks in at this point. And I feel like the Mean Streets of Gadsden honeymoon lasted 4 days.
not even 4 hours.
I mean, it was. It
Oh,
was
no, Gadgetzan. Oh no, sorry. Gadgetzan, yes. Gadgetzan was like about
Yeah,
a week. I'm
Gadgetzan
talking
was
about
awful.
Karazhan. Karazhan was 4
Yeah.
hours. It was like nothing.
Yeah, but
People were-
Gadsden, the thing is, Gadsden gave us hope that there would be something undiscovered. Except the only undiscovered deck with Gadsden, the only one was Water Rogue. That is the
Yeah,
deck that
Water
took the
Rogue.
longest to come out with the Finja package.
Yeah.
It took a long time, but overall, the idea of we're gonna be playing Reno. I mean, there's only so many ways you can build a Reno deck. There's only so many ways you can build a Jade deck. And with the Ungoro packages, what they've done is here are all these neutral packages. Stonehill Defender discovers
Yeah.
different things in different classes. You will discover different elementals in each class. You can play this deck you're making however you want. It's been fantastic for that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, to your point with Gadgetzan too, I felt like with Gadgetzan, they built these unique elements to the expansion, and those were the strong things in the expansion. Like Jade was a strong thing. The Dragon,
Yeah.
Dragon was a strong thing. All those things, Kazakus too, right? All those things panned out to be exactly what, and maybe they intended. They just wanted to make new stuff that it would end up being the strongest. With this expansion, I felt like they just built more tools, not crazy specific archetypes or synergies that would force us to build the best deck. Like elementals, right? That was like the very first thing. Everybody was already in the mindset. So when the elementals were presented, everybody was like, "Oh, elementals easy. Oh, that's going to be so broken. It's going to be so freaking strong. It's going to be dragons." And it hasn't been that. It's strong in some decks, but it's not oppressively strong, like right from the get-go. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like elementals were. I mean, one of the cool things that I like is that they've created a bunch of value cards, right?
Mhm.
Instead of just making like high stat cards, they've created stuff like our 3-mana 1/4. That's a Silverback Patriarch, but it
Yeah.
gets you an extra card. Or
Right.
a 5-mana 4/5 that gets you an extra card. And honestly, that on its own, I think carries it keeps the power level at bay. Like it doesn't let it just go crazy. Sure, these cards are on average super powerful, and there are definitely outliers. And they have force-fed archetypes like Taunt Warrior. It's clear that they're force-feeding it. But at the same time, it's not so dominant that nothing else is allowed to win. It has,
It's
blind
beatable.
spots.
Yeah.
You play Deadly Shot and you're on tempo with Hunter, and suddenly the Taunt Warrior is like, well, I guess I'm dead. 'Cause you roll over him. And there are counters, which I think is
It's one
fantastic.
word: poisonous. That works really, really well, and that's like amazing. It just shows you how I'm anticipating they were trying to design it that way. So that was definitely really good. I think the only surprise so far, I have to say, is that Warlock hasn't really made a giant impression outside of like Sivka's his control lock, with the Dooms and everything like that, and the Medivhs. There really hasn't been any kind of good Warlock deck, which has been super surprising to a lot of folks. Not only the quest, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, the quest is super good," but even just a regular Zoo deck. We haven't even seen anything powerful. I think Murlocs have taken over that Zoo spot now, and given how well the synergy is with the Murlocs and how easy it is, you don't have to make decisions about discards and juggling, that sort of thing. I feel like that's just going to be the default Zoo deck. Where Warlock falls, I don't know. It might take an expansion before it pans out.
It lost. So that's the thing I realized is I had an arena run saved up when I was recently. I had it saved up from before the expansion, and I realized I was playing cards one at a time, and it was like, okay, let's start with Possessed Villager. All right, that's still in standard. My turn 2 was Dark Peddler, and I realized, I was thinking, why isn't Zoo playable? Because I had the perfect curve in arena, and I realized, wait, Zoo doesn't have Dark Peddler anymore. And then I had Arson Horse Rider on 3, and I'm like, well, that could also fit sort of Ish and Zoo and other decks. And then I realized, well, that's gone too. A lot of those really good early mid game, like to turns 1 to 4 that Zoo relied on, have
Imp
sort
Gang
of
Boss,
gone away.
it's gone too, right?
Yeah, a lot of those 1 to 4 turns are no longer as sticky. So Zoo is having to settle for those hyper polarized cards like Darkshire Councilman. And then if it rolls super well and you just get the snowball going, you win. But it's not consistent, and they have to high roll the right discards to get Silverware Golems and Clutch Mother. And even when they get that going, it's like, well, are you really that much better than, Murloc Paladin? Are you doing that better?
Yeah.
And as it turns out, they're a little bit too slow.
Yeah, one thing I haven't seen yet is Murloc Warlock. Maybe that could be something too. But the biggest thing that they miss out on, the Zoo, the demons, and everything, is adapt. There's nothing that makes all those minions all of a sudden better with Divine Shield or +1/+1 or Wind Fury or anything like that.
Pterodax,
yeah. Even Poison, right? We're just talking about Poison now. Poison's like essential to beating down some of these taunt warriors and decks that have the big taunts. So I think that's the one thing the Zoo's lacking. Maybe some folks will figure out some way to navigate that, because there are some cards that are good, right? The Pterodax, like you said, the egg play, right? People still trying to make that amazing combo into crazy board control. But there are definitely holes, though, that I don't even think that high skilled, high skill cap type of plays can overcome. Might take an extra expansion. Maybe by summer it'll be super good.
I've seen some people play the Murloc build, right? Like the Murloc Warlock, as you mentioned, which I think is actually interesting that you bring it up, because I saw them play Zubat in the list with the whole, Sea Devil Stinger that gives you a free Finja sometimes. You can turn 4 and play a Finja for 5 health.
Oh, yeah,
In the deck, you play Direwolf Alpha already, right? So you play the Murlocs early, you play Direwolf Alpha, and then suddenly everything, kind of merges into this Zoo game plan. The issue is when you don't pick up the whole menagerie package with that deck, it's missing a bit of a push. And, then you can't play the discard package in that one deck because you're too all over the place, and you end up lacking focus in a way.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely hear you. But I want to bring up one thing that before we kind of move on is that we did the deck of the week this past week for the patrons. This is the first one that we've ever done. And for those of you not know what we're talking about, one of the things that I started up, at least for the Patreon or the patrons that have been supporting the show, is that we bring up a deck of the week, and we present a deck on the show, which we'll be doing in a little bit here. And then we have everybody play this deck, particularly the patrons. And then on Monday, we kind of get together and we do a mini show. We did audio only this time around, but we did a mini show, and we had 3 people show up, and we talked about our winning percentages and some of the things that we learned from the deck, and gave each other some tips as to possibly how to play the deck better. So we'll be doing that again this week. We're going to keep doing it until I feel like maybe it's not working out. But given that we got 3 folks to go, I think it definitely seems to be some interest there. And the whole point is to help you guys that don't have time to build decks and don't know how to play these decks outside of listening to the show. Just giving you just something to some direction, as to what to play. And we're going to try all kinds of different decks. Some decks will be, more budget decks. Some decks will be obviously just what we talk about on the show and things like that. So we did the Druid, the Mana Druid last time, the token Druid, where the aggro Druid,
the living mana
Druid, exactly. And for the most part, I think the results were quite good. I think on average, outside of somebody that tweeted us today that had an 88% win percentage, I think on average it was 60% from everybody. So, yeah. So that's really, really good. That's crazy good. Mine was actually 58, so it wasn't quite as high as that.
That deck has that deck got me, I think, an 18-win streak or something. It was ridiculous. I went all the way from rank 10 to rank 3 with it. It was absurd. I've done
crazy.
So many things with. I've tried out so many decks, and I'd say that the aggro Druid is one of the most insanely well-performing ones. And I'm surprised that we don't see much talk of it. People talk about Anaconda Druid. Oh, look at this deck. It's so awesome. And let's talk about Murloc Paladin and, all these decks but Aggro Druid just seems to fly under people's radar. I don't know why, because that deck it's like the old school token Druid, except now it says, well, if I'm out of steam, you know what? I can always just find living mana. And that's an extra tool that think of it as the cheat card of the deck. You can beat the deck until they suddenly get that card off the top, and then you no longer can. It's like a Doom Guard off the top against Zoo. when they don't have anything to lose from it. It's insane.
Well,
tempo-wise.
yeah, exactly.
And,
It gives them a winning or the ability to come back against aggro decks, with that living mana play. Because even on turn 5, right, you can fill the board for the most part. And against warriors, against even like Murloc decks, that's all you need sometimes. Because then they're going to have to start dealing with that. If you have, for whatever reason, some kind of way to combo it, if it's later in games, then you can just win games. You had no business winning. And I think I had maybe 1 or 2 of those games, maybe 1 game or 2 where I had like double Power of the Wild or something like that. I never got Feral the combo with Savage Roar, but I did get that a few times, and that ended up winning me games. So, yeah. So that deck is strong.
Lotus is pretty good.
Yeah, that Mark of the Lotus too, man. That's so good, especially with like Violet Teacher. You have like another card that combos awesome with Violet Teacher. So give that a try, guys. You can well, obviously, if you're a patron, you can go and see the post, and you'll be able to check out just our conversation there. But this week, guys, we're going to be spotlighting the Paladin. And so what we're going to do, this is probably the first time we're doing this with Ungoro, and we'll take a look at a class, kind of see some of the decks that are really strong right now, and then talk about the key cards. Right now, Paladin, I feel like maybe a week ago was like hipster playing, Paladin and playing Tarim and doing some cool stuff with mid-range Paladin. Now it's just outright good. Like just, people are just playing it because it is definitely one of the best winning percentage decks. And I think the first thing we should start with is the aggro version of it, given that, I just mentioned that it's kind of the default zoo deck at this point. And I'm going to show a couple of them, I would say.
I don't know if it's the default zoo deck. We've seen, like, I'd almost argue that hunters, like some of the aggro hunters,
that's a good one too. Yeah,
resorting to it. But yeah, basically, Murloc Paladin is real, and we're not memeing. We're not saying
no. Yeah, I knew
Murloc Paladin. No, it's a real deck, and it has a win rate for some people. I mean, my win rate today must have been in the 80%. It was ridiculous.
Mine's 70 plus for sure with this aggro deck. Yeah, I went from I think rank 10 to rank 4.
No doubt. In a straight line, right? No question.
Yeah, it's like 20 and 4, 20 and 5. And I played a combination of these two. So the one on the left is, I think, the one that's been floating around. I think some people have seen it on Dog Stream. Some people have seen it on all kinds of people's stream. The one on the right is the one that I got. I saw VLPS developed, and he tweeted it out. So I wanted to give that a try too, because it's a different take on it. But there's nothing that complicated about how this deck's built. It basically uses all the Murlocs that have some kind of synergy, with other Murlocs, or it, fills the board a little bit more, so you can, Cold Light Seer, a bit better, or you can Gentle Megasaur. But it's very refined in that way. So there's no extra Murloc. You don't throw in every single Murloc, but you throw in the ones that definitely synergize. And then the one on the left has Steward of Darkshire too, which has synergy with a lot of your Murlocs and a lot of the 1-drops that you have, so you can Divine Shield it. And then the Stonehill Defender, we were just talking about the Stonehill Defender. Best card, potentially, in Ungoro. You got to add it, especially in Paladin. Paladin has 2 or 3 taunts that the other classes don't have that are amazing. They're crazy good. That includes Tyrion. It includes the 6/6 that gives you the Divine Shield, the 7-drop.
Grimestream Protector.
Yeah, Grimestream Protector. Yeah, and then I think one other one, right?
There's Wicker Flame Burn Bristle.
Yeah, Wicker Flame Burn
and
Bristle.
There's Sunkeeper Tarim. And
I
just want to point out,
yeah, jeez, there's so many.
Sunkeeper Tarim is in the Murloc deck. So we have there are different aspects of the deck, right? We've got the Murlocs that are there to flood, and there are the Murlocs that are there to buff, and we have the buffers, like the complementary cards. Steward of Darkshire shields your Murlocs. Gentle Megasaur gives them a buff of your choice. And Sunkeeper Tarim, who says, big taunts are now 3/3s. My little Murlocs are now 3/3s. But cooler yet is the fact that Sunkeeper, if you have a War Leader on the board, for instance, is going to bump up the stats of your Murlocs baseline to 3/3, and the War Leader's buff will apply over it. So suddenly, if your War Leader is on the board, your 1/1 becomes a 3/3 with Sunkeeper Tarim, but then it gets the +2/+1 from Sunkeeper, the Murloc Well Eater. So now it's a 5/4. And I've had a large amount of boards today that were like, so I've got all these Murlocs that are buffed up a little bit. And if I just jam Sunkeeper, I basically nullify his board and mine goes through unimpeded. And that has caused some absolute madman situations in terms of damage output. Like I've had kills that deal 32, Gentle Megasaur with Wind Fury on everything.
Yeah, those are the dreams. I mean, they don't happen very, very often.
Oh, they happened all the time.
Really?
Today.
They've happened like maybe one time out of the whole streak. But no question, like Tareem, when you're playing, like, again, those, I don't know, like Handlock or something like that, which giant ass minions, and you just destroy them like very, very quickly. It's freaking amazing. And then, like you said, Megasaur has so many utilities, and that's kind of why I thought it was going to be a super strong card and potentially broken, because I knew a Murloc deck would be good. I thought it would be Shaman. I didn't actually think it would be Paladin again, but definitely Megasaur. The utility it has with poison, being able to break through and continue push and face, or the Wind Fury like you're talking about, or even just the +1/+1 has been like really, really great for me with trading against other aggro decks and things like that. It's been a huge card, and I mean we'll talk about the cards. Yeah, right? No?
That thing is so nuts.
It's so good. It's crazy good.
Chant. You're like, oh, what can I do? Wait, let me Gentle Megasaur a 1/1 into a poisonous minion, and now suddenly they lose out everything. And that has caused, I'm sure, like degrees of frustration on the other side that are insane. But then you look at the potential outcomes and you're like, poisonous won me this game, but so could +3 attack have done it. So could Divine Shield have done it. So like, even though poisonous looked like, oh, he high rolled like mad, every option is actually pretty good on Murlocs. It seems like there's nothing wasted on them aside from maybe like a re-stealth, and sometimes even that's fine. So
yeah, I would say the not targetable by hero power, that whole thing, that's probably the worst one now that been able to play a lot. But poisonous, I would say half the time I'm looking for poisonous, just because against aggro you do want to trade efficiently, right? And as long as you get ahead against even hunters and classes like that, you'll be fine. And then of course against Taunt Warrior, it's like, oh, they just threw down the 2/7 and the just the I don't know, the 3/6s and the one the 3/5s and just all the big taunts, right, that they have. And you're just like, oh, I just throw my 1/1s like into each one, and you just they're all gone.
Thing is that the Ali Armorsmith, the 2/7 for warriors that they taunt up with, if your guys have Divine Shield, it doesn't gain the warrior any armor because it doesn't deal any damage.
Yep,
and that has been also a game winner for me in many of those matchups. So there's a lot of nuance to the way to play the deck. I feel like it looks super straightforward, but then like the proper way to play it is not to just vomit anything on curve. And that's proven to be like an interesting balance to strike. It's been very, very interesting to play.
Yeah, well, why don't we look at a few of the key cards here, and let me just move at least one of these over to the side here, and we'll bring up some of the cards. So Megasaur I just talked about. Hydrologist. I think Hydrologist is, I know a lot of people are high on Hydrologist, and it was probably the card I would say I most underrated was Hydrologist, because like at first glance the secrets are just not that great. When you're just thinking about secrets on in any situation, but in the situation of this type of Zoo Murloc deck, it's super good. Like almost all of those secrets are really, really good, with exception to Eye for an Eye and maybe one other one.
I've won three Freeze Mage games today to Eye for an Eye, because the only way you beat them, the literal only way to beat them, is to force them to die to themselves by throwing a spell in your face. Otherwise, you just can't do it.
Right.
So Eye for an Eye on mages has been exceptional since they're all running a burn package, it feels.
But you get hit by it first, right? The damage actually is taken off by you, and so have you had draws?
I was on the verge of a draw, but the mage was smart enough to wait until he was at his last card and picked up Alex.
Right.
He didn't attack or play anything. That's the one game I wish I could have just gone, a stealth Murloc like Finja at the right time, or a Bluegill, which the deck we're talking about, the primary deck, does not run. And had it been for Bluegill, I would have won that game. but probably on average. But because the first list we're talking about plays like Zoo, it doesn't run an understated 2-drop.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's got room for that, and I kind of get it.
Yeah, yeah. But man, secrets like Noble Sacrifice, great for tempo. Redemption, I think, has been one of the best ones that I've been using. Even the Kodo one, the one that actually returns it to your hand. Oh my god, it's been so great with Stonehill Defender and any of the taunts. So the secrets are really, really good, and obviously this being a Murloc too has synergy with it. This card has been phenomenal in this deck and like essential. You can't not have it. And given that there's not the greatest card draw here outside of small time recruits, which I guess I can move over here. And this is kind of an interesting approach too, right? Because everybody in the beginning and by default always thinks Divine Favor. But it turns out that small time recruits is better in this situation, given that you run so many 1-drops and you're guaranteed to draw 3. So for a long time, I was like, man, Paladin got screwed. Small time Buck versus this. This is ridiculous. Like, not even close. This small time's terrible compared to the one that Warrior got. But we're finally finding a place for it. And, it comes at a timely moment. You never keep this card, obviously. You want to like draw into this card. But, I think it's been interesting how they used it. Do you prefer this card over Favor or no?
So I'll say it's matchup dependent, right? So it's all going to be based on what you face off against. Sure. I think that's what's going to matter the most. But what I've considered doing is I've considered cutting down to 1 draw engine. I've considered slowing down the deck a bit to where instead of playing completely like Zoo, it finds room for choose over champions because they're not in the core list we're talking about. I feel like having a big buff like a Blessing of Kings is often better than going wide on the board. I feel like that would help me out in many matchups, and maybe finding room for just a Tyrion baseline in the deck, right? Like maybe find a slot for that.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I would go about modifying the list, but I feel like that would make the consistency of the deck increase. Like playing Grimscale Oracles, 1-mana 1/1s that give +1, like that's cute and all, and it's nice, but I feel like sometimes that card would be better off as a weapon or as a late game card or as Blessing of Kings. And that's where I get a bit hesitant about the current versions we're running with. But overall, I'd say Favor has been, to me, more consistent than just small time recruits. I think for late game pushes, because you rarely win on turn 4 or 5. It's really like long drawn out games.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that too. In my recent modification, I did drop 1 small time recruit, and like you said, Grimscale Oracle, I think is the first thing that you can drop from this list. Given that I felt like I'm always looking for Tyrion, that why not just add a Tyrion to your freaking deck?
Right.
Instead of Stonehilling for a Tyrion, it's like just add one, and it's probably going to do a lot better than the +1 that I'm going to get on a lot of these Murlocs for trades and things like that. So yeah, Tyrion's been added to mine based on that. But we'll be talking about a mid-range in a second. So obviously Tyrion will be part of that deck. But yeah, so aggressively, I think this deck is fairly easy to play too. I would say you do have to prep, you do have to control your resources a bit. And turn 1, I have to say, is probably one of the most important plays. Like
it's silly, right?
Yeah, it's like which one do I play? It's like, do I play the Tidecaller? Do I play the Inquisitor? Do I play Grimscale? Of course, obviously, don't play the Chum versus anything that can ping you, but even just coining out, like when you have the coin especially, do I play the Hydrologist? Do I play the Murlocs that only have 1 health? So it's interesting to figure out what the right play is against your matchup.
Yeah, the coin is where this deck is really blurry because Rockpool Hunter is great as a follow-up to anything. It buffs a Murloc by +1/+1, so if you can play a Murloc on 1 and play him on 2, you can coin out Hydrologist, get this guy out. It's fantastic. But then there's these matchups where, against Hunter, you're like, well, Hyena is a thing. I can't just play something into Hyena and lose the game. So how do I stall these alley cats without feeding the Hyena too much?
Yeah.
And oftentimes you end up slowing down way too much and fall behind until you suddenly get a mid-game pushback with like a Stonehill Defender buys you a single turn, and then there we go, Megasaur, Finja. And everything. It's been tough.
Yeah,
it's been a tough-ish aggro deck to play.
Yeah, definitely. It's really good against Warrior too. I've had a lot of success against aggro Warrior. probably a little bit less success against Taunt, but still generally good whenever I can get that poison. It all depends on the Gentle Megazord draws for that matchup. With the other zoo deck, the VLPS one that I had here, let me show that one real quick. So this one's a little bit different because it has Argent Squires and Firefly. It basically has 4 cards in the one drop, and this is the kind of this is the kind of deck that you want small time recruits over Divine Favor, because there's like 10 one drops, so you're not gonna miss with it. This is gonna do well. This is gonna do better against aggro decks, just because you'll be able to outpace and most of the time trade better against them. I would say it's better against Hunter too. It's just the same principle, but it's a lot worse against the slower ones. Is what I've found.
Yeah,
you can still win like a ton. So it's
right. It's down to Argent. The thing is, like, Argent Squires in here instead of Grimscale Oracle, and Fireflies in here instead of the
Stonehills.
The stone, yeah, exactly. So you don't get the like late game Tyrion pushes and whatnot. However, it gives you a lot of consistency in the early stages of the game, where like Firefly and Argent Squire work in a similar fashion, right? Like if you're gonna play Argent Squire, you're going to play Firefly before you do that. So when you see that they have like 2 Fireflies, 2 Squires, this means they're really valuing the early game pings. They want to compete with the pirates that are out there. They want to compete with the weapons that often come out. Because one notorious thing I've noticed about the deck is, your turn 2 plays with Balefin Tidehunter and Murloc Tidehunter, those are really weak to pirates. Like Grimscale Chum turn 1, I mean, I just don't want to do that. It just hurts. So that's the reason I think why we're seeing more Argent Squires, Fireflies in this list as a more anti-aggro tech.
Yeah, if you're playing against a lot of warriors, this deck is the one to go to versus the other one. It's got Bluegill Warrior too. Bluegill Warriors is huge for trading or even just pushing faiths at the very last minute too. So yeah, definitely check this version out. Again, VLPS I think tweeted this well. He might have revised it since then, but I had a lot of success with this too. I think when I first played this, I was 6-1 or 7-1 or something like that. So I think generally you can't miss with aggro Murloc Paladin right now. But why don't we talk about a more of a mid-range type of deck here? Okay, let me take some of these cards off of here.
Right. So mid-range Paladin's kind of interesting because since the expansion came out, there's been a trend where people are looking for decks, right? And people have been experimenting with a way to construct a deck that would be mid-range Paladin, harkening back to the days of Quartermaster and, those slower days. And as it turns out, right now there's no like pure control Paladin because the mid-range decks have the luxury of including the cards that we'd normally call, control cards. So what usually qualifies a deck right now to become a control deck is when you're running double Equality, double Wild Pyro, and double Doomsayer. Like, that is the only thing. If you have these 6 cards, you're probably a control Paladin. Everything else is, like, honestly just a Paladin deck that's going through the mid-range. And so there's different ways to build them. But as I was saying earlier, we have a lot of neutral cards that have Discovery slapped onto them. People tried mid-range Elemental with the Servant of Kalimos to discover Ragnaros Lightlord, and people tried that approach as well with the Stonehill Defender slapped on top. But then people gravitated towards another value, and I think Tides was the first to do that, where he went for not the first, but definitely one of the first, went for the Primal Fin Lookout. Dropped the Elemental package, no Ragnaros Lightlord discovered from Servant of Kalimos, and instead we're going to try to play Vilefin Inquisitor, create Murlocs on a whim to then trigger Primal Fin Lookout and get ourselves an extra Murloc. And that was interesting to me. I was kind of interested to see that people got creative with value plays.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. It's just figuring out that you can fit in value plays at the end of games instead of building an entire deck around value plays like we've seen in the past, where you have to just fully commit to that. And that's why Stonehill Defender is just so great. Sometimes you just need one extra card, and that's enough for you to end up winning a game. But yeah, so this deck is quite different than the previous one. It still does have a very big Murloc base just to kind of facilitate that early game. You can even think of it sometimes in terms of it being removal, like against Hunter. Like, you just need those those minions on the board to do something about just the pressure that they put, because you don't want to rely on having to draw quality all the time and that sort of thing. And then Stampede and Kodo, I think that's performed really well too. I've seen people play 1, I've seen people play 2, trying it out. And then Spiked Rich Steed, I think that's another the main new cards that we've been seeing. Defensively, it's great. It requires you to have something on the board. If you don't know what the card is, it's I'll show it to you real quick. It's a buff that's 6 mana +2/+6 and taunt, and then when it dies, it gives you a 2/6 Stegodon that you can play later. So this was really, really good if you can keep some minions on the board. And generally with Paladin and a lot of these Murlocs, you can at least keep 1. So I think playing 1 is probably the best. Playing 2 is pretty tough. You get in this situational things, and it can be, it can be a dead card in your hand if you have nothing on the board.
Yeah, but it seems to work out for people. Like, we've had a bunch of, like, Paladin has actually been rank 1 legend repeatedly, is the point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we've had a lot of people cycling in and out. What I would be inclined to do with the mid-range Paladin is really just keep the aggro early Murloc, setup. I would be inclined to keep that stuff and then jam some late game, like maybe 1 Steed. Playing Curator with 1 Stampeding Kodo seems amazing to me. You get Kodo or Gentle Megasaur, and you get a Murloc on top. And while you're at it, why not do
Drake,
like a lot of people have been doing and play Primordial Drake? Because why not? So like the difference between a mid-range deck and an aggro deck is kind of subtle in that you're cutting some early game cards to then jam Aldor Peacekeepers and Spike Rich Steeds and Ragnaros Lightlord. But the differences aren't all that massive. Like, they're not like, we're changing 15 cards. No, we're keeping that Murloc package, man. Like, that Murloc package is sweet, and we want to keep it. And, do we play... So, Blessing of Kings would be better in an aggro deck, and Spike Rich Steed is better in a slower mid-range deck. That's what I've been finding, and it's kind of cool to see the differences there in builds.
I mean, you can think of it like this. There's no small-time recruits or divine favor here. So there has to be some kind of drawing mechanic, and the drawing mechanic is Curator, and it draws into late game things, value type of cards. So it's very synergistic with how the deck's built, and it's built in a very cool way too. These are the type of deck building, I guess, schemes, or what you can say, are that take a lot of playing and really figuring out, okay, what's needed once we start with this kind of base. And how do we, extend, just the success or the win percentage of this base, which is, the Murloc, right? And it probably started as an aggro Murloc, and slowly, 1 card at a time, 10 cards got changed to make it more of a mid-range deck, and that's really, really cool.
I think I don't like Ragnaros Lightlord.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
I think I'd say, like, if I wanted to cut something here, I'd probably cut like 1 Spike Rich Steed and the Ragnaros to make room for Blessings of Kings or something. Like, some really beefy buff, because I've got so much early game that fits like fits what the deck wants to do, and I like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I was watching Tyler play. I think he was coming to that conclusion with Lightlord too. He was thinking about dropping it last night. But yeah, I think those two would be good. I think you have a lot of options as to what you want to do with those 2 cards, but it all depends on what you get from Stonehill Defender, to be honest. If you get the right cards with Stonehill Defender, then you can add anything and you're good. But maybe Vine Cleaver, that's one of the things Savitz does here on the right, with Vine Cleaver.
Love that.
Yeah, and then that guarantees that you're going to have, the 2 minions, right, for Nesting Rock. Nesting Rock is like another defensive. It's situational too, kind of like Spike Steed, but it's situational a different way, right? So
it can come out of Curator, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
it's like, do you play this or Kodo? That's the big question. And oftentimes, as it turns out, Nesting Rock against some of the more beefy minions is better. Like against Warrior, for instance, that might not have, in the later stages of the game when you've got 1/1s on the board. Sometimes Nesting Rock's a bit tougher to I mean, Kodo is tougher to make work than Nesting Rock. One of the things that I ran into earlier, though, and you'll probably be happy to hear that, ChanMan, is I was playing this deck, like not this list, but an aggro Murloc, and I got completely raffle stomped by a Volcano Shaman with double Hex, double Devolve, double Lightning Storm, double Mail. Anyway, just all the doubles, and with Spirit Echo, So I couldn't like the Genie Water Speaker was on the board. I can't kill it, so I can't take a value trade because it just heals up. And I just got Raffle Stomped. No question. Just completely Raffle Stomped. I played Megasaur twice, and twice I got devolved into Wisps. I went Megasaur, yeah, let's get Divine Shield.
Nice, nice.
And I felt bad. But
yeah, I haven't got a chance to really delve into Control Shaman. I started playing like a Stonehill Shaman just to, just to see if I could get, how often I could get White Eyes and things like that. But, I didn't get a chance to see Volcano. I've heard Volcano's good. I've even seen people start playing Acolyte to counter even potential volcanoes out there. So somebody's playing Control Shaman out there, because there's no way that Volcano's played for me outside of that. But that's definitely a good thing. I feel like that and Meteor have been very surprising as to how triggering those cards have been for people.
It's insane, right? It's gotta like. Some people get so frustrated with some of the RNG that happens, but Hearthstone, no, that's what you live for.
Yeah,
I've still got, honestly, I still have some gripes, and I mean like massive gripes.
For what?
Swashbuckler.
Oh,
like, that card just does not feel okay. Like, I lost 2 games today to Swashbuckler again. Then we're on lockdown, and then the guy gets Wicker Flame Burn Bristle off of Swashbuckler, and that's the point. I'm just like, well, look, with the Quest Rogue, right?
Yeah.
Quest Rogue, she's at 6 health, and I'm about to deliver lethal, and she goes, Wicker Flame. It's now 5/5 with Divine Shield, Taunt, and double heal. I'm just like, okay, I guess we're done here.
That's gonna happen, man.
I know, but I don't like that they roll so many burglars, because I'm just waiting for the BlizzCon. Like, I'm just waiting for BlizzCon. I want to see whether or not we have another one of those.
No, of course we will.
Laugh at Swashbuckler because finals were determined on 1 out of 25. Like, that's just, ugh.
It's it's funny because I think that the Swashbuckler play isn't going to feel as bad as the Babbling Book, because a lot of times, well, I don't know, maybe it will, but a lot of times with the Swashbuckler, like I see with Quest Rogue, the impact is early, like super fast. So the games don't last that long anyways. So, and I think with shorter games, people don't think as much about it as, this 25 turn, 30 turn game that Babbling Book brings up, the right card and you're just screwed, that sort of thing. But it's bound to happen. I mean, there's too many cards, there's too many Cabal's Tomes and Babbling Books and Swashbucklers at this point that, it's got to have some random aspect to it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm pretty sure people will eventually just, if the game is quick, right, and the rogue's about to die, and she goes Swashbuckler, Wicker Flame, like that's gonna.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, you have to crash 2 things. That buys them a turn, and a turn against Quest Rogue is huge.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm hoping there's no such memes or memery in important matches and important games within those matches.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I totally know what you mean. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think we have any, again, like you just mentioned, there's not real, like a huge control paladin floating out there outside of maybe the Holy Wrath one, which I guess you could call is control up until the OTK play. But I think there's potential for some out there. It's just Midrange and Aggo are just such good options right now. It's hard to play anything else other than that. And it kind of has the Shaman syndrome. Control Shaman was never that bad, but it's never going to be played because Midrange Shaman is so damn good and Aggo Shaman were so damn good. I think Paladin's having the same thing right now.
But I think Control Shaman might become a legit tech for tournaments right now. Like that deck is. I will make that statement. I think Control Shaman is the best deck to beat the Paladin Murloc spam. I think it is by far the best deck for that.
Yeah.
Maybe Freeze Mage. Maybe Freeze Mage is actually better against it, but Freeze Mage might be even better. But that deck just double devolve on a Megasaur board is just so crushing. Hex on the Tyrians, they're discovered. They've just got it, man. Like Shamans have it this time. Like they've got a good control deck that feels super sturdy. And it's got the ability, if you play N'Zoth, to also outvalue control decks. If you play Igneous Elementals with Tauren and White Eyes, that's enough to come back. So it's been good.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to try that out soon. I have this this crazy infatuation with Control Shaman for some reason. And I can't even explain it, but there is some type of desire for Control Shaman to be good in the metagame. But okay, well, go ahead.
One note before you shut us out of this topic.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys want a gorgeous golden card, make Volcano like now.
Oh, it is. It's really nice.
You have to like playing it golden and then seeing the animation happen is just one of the most satisfying board clears that I've ever seen. It is so satisfying seeing your opponent's board just fall apart. And yeah, looks good.
I have to say that just the general animations in Goro have been really good.
That's true. That's
There's
a good
a lot
point.
of little things.
They've really been kicked up a notch, but I thought of all the ones that Volcano deserved the most love.
All right, well, why don't we kind of transition into just the shout-outs that we always do for iTunes and the folks that have been leaving 5-star reviews for us and nice comments. For those of you that do listen to Value Town on iTunes or Google Podcasts, anything audio, SoundCloud, leave us a review. Wherever platform you use, leave us a review, 5-star review if you like the show. It really helps with folks trying to find Value Town in terms of when they type Hearthstone, just SEO and things like that. But I do want to give a shout out to Pum Daddy, Virtual Royalty, Escomer, Angry Avocado for being the latest folks to do that. And we've been getting a lot recently, so man, thanks to all of you guys for doing that. It's amazing. It wasn't too long ago that we had like 40 of them, and now we have like almost 140 of them. So it's been really, really great that you guys have come out. And also want to plug some of the patrons. Again, the show is supported by the folks, all of you folks that have been contributing to the Patreon at patreon.com/valuetown. Big thanks to Mike T, Richard S, of course, our legendary producers, as well as Esther G, William C, Gary D, Joel A, Jonathan V, Michael O, William S, Drunken Monk, and Cody K. And again, guys, if you want to keep the show going and want to just us being able to grow the show and do some cool things, think about contributing even just a little bit, like a quarter, 50 cents, a dollar, whatever. The way it's set up is it's X number of dollars per episode. So if you can, that'd be amazing and it would help us greatly. Like even like 50 cents, you don't understand like how much it helps us. And also, guys, I want to talk about the deck of the week. So we mentioned the deck of the week earlier. I think the deck of the week, given that we're doing Paladin, originally I wanted to do Hunter, but given that we're doing Paladin this week, I think we should just do Paladin, a Paladin deck here. And why don't we just go with the very, very fast one here that we talked about on the show? And I think it's a good baseline, and you guys can get a feel for it too. And go ahead and start playing that. What we'll do on Monday is we'll get into Discord. There's a specific channel that we get into, and we just have at it with talking about it. I produced this like mini episode that we'll be able to distribute to folks. Right now, I'm just distributing it to the patrons, given that this is like a patron-only type of thing. But we'll see how well it does. If it does even better, then maybe we expand it out even more. And then lastly, we got of course, we're sponsored again by Ting, so we got actually a quick video from Ting, which you might enjoy here. So we'll be right back. Can we just talk about